What is up, my ninjas? I am Strident, and I am finally here to give you my review of the Sabre 2.0 by Max Factory in the Figma series. This is a figure of a character whom I have been 100% behind and all about since the very first time I watched Fate Stay Night. Here we have a take on Arthurian legend that actually feels kind of feasible, and the character still embodies everything that King Arthur actually embodies. I mean, this is the idea with Sabre in Fate Stay Night, is that King Arthur, the sword was pulled out of the stone by Arturia Pendragon, as opposed to King Arthur, Arthur Pendragon. And the way things were, a woman couldn't possibly be the king of England, so they kept it under wraps. So in the history books, it says that King Arthur led England. He was the king of knights, and this legendary king. And all of the historical and fantastical elements of his story still remain. But the fact of the matter is, he was in fact a woman. During the events of the show, the character is brought back for to fight on the side of a specific person for an ultimate wish-granting device. And there's other characters historically relevant, I guess, and mythologically relevant, that are brought back to life to fight for this same ultimate wish-giving device. It's a really cool series. If you get a chance, you should watch it. You will like it. The animation is unlike anything else. It's one of the best series out there, and it just keeps getting better. Anyway, this figure, it does not disappoint. I mean, it's like I said in my thoughts for my car, everything that I want in an action figure, sculpt, paint, articulation, and accessories, it's all here. Playability, durability, it's all here. So sit back and listen to me geek out and gush and give my ultimate praises to this freaking figure. So with the sculpt, this is the perfect merging of articulation and sculpt. I'll get more into the articulation later, but this figure looks beautiful from every angle. Let me stress this. The figure looks beautiful from every angle. Every angle. Everything I've done with her, even when I was just in the middle of a pose, it was half done, she still looked fucking amazing. It's just a brilliantly done figure. There's no slop. None. None whatsoever. Every little stripe, every bolt, every little crease, every little bit of shading, it's all perfectly done from every angle. No paint splotches anywhere. I'm gonna repeat it again. No paint splotches anywhere. Not on her hand, not on the sword, not on the sheaths or scabbards, nothing. Not on the eyes of the figure. No googly eye syndrome here. This shit is immaculate. The King of Knights is represented perfectly. She looks like she just stepped right out of the freaking anime. And you know me, I used to be a big otaku when I was a teenager. As I got older, it just got less and less interesting because they kept doing the same shit over and over, and characters just were less and less interesting. Every now and then I find an anime that actually has the kind of design and the kind of depth that I want, and she is one of those characters. It's at the top of my list as far as my favorite anime go. And this is not just because I love the anime. It's just the crafting of this figure is just so well done. I mean, things have articulation that you normally don't see on action figures. Range of motion is ridiculous. Posing, the joints are nice and strong, but they're not stiff to the point where it feels like you're going to break the figure if you pose them. There are a couple tricky joints to work with. It's mainly in the wrists, because the wrists are kind of a universal joint that you have to twist sometimes in order to get it to move in a certain direction. But once you get the hang of that, it's just perfect. Her feet have, you know, perfect paint. It's not like they skimped because, you know, it's the soles of her feet, or it's the feet are kind of under, you know, the dress is in the way and you're gonna, no, everything is painted. Everything's painted. I mean, under her pants or pantaloons underneath her, you know, dress, they're cast in white. But then, you know, from her knees down, it's painted armor. And, you know, what makes this extra awesome is, like I said earlier, and I've said this in many other videos, in order for a figure to be successful, the sculptor has to look at the source material and then apply what he learned, or translate what he sees into the action figure. And then the articulation and everything else has to help take that further. Look at the subject matter and then look at the figure. But the only thing they did differently is that front flap that hangs on the front of her dress. It's not like this blue-violet color. It's just blue. Big whoop-de, you know, whoop-de freaking do. That's not a huge deal for me, you know. It's just, oh, man. I don't know how else to say it. This is just a fucking beautiful figure. And I apologize for the sounds, you know, the dogs and all that stuff. It's hot. I've started opening windows, and you're going to hear stuff outside. So, you know, I apologize for that. But, you know, back to this beautiful fucking figure. She's just, you know, people say there isn't a perfect figure out there. In my opinion, this is a perfect figure. You're not going to hear me complain about shit. Nothing. Everything's perfect. The amount of accessories she comes with, perfect. There's, I'll say maybe there's one thing she could use, but this is as close to a perfect figure as I have in my collection. Now, in order for a figure to be perfect, the articulation has to be beyond stellar. You know what I mean? It has to be ridiculous. She has ridiculous articulation. And considering her legs are so covered up, you'd think they would have just been like, fuck it, we're not going to do anything with that. You know, I spoke before in various Marvel Legends reviews about how if a figure has a certain function, or a character has a function, they need articulation to allow them to do that thing. Case in point, Wolverine swings his arms around because he has claws on them. So he should be able to, you know, have a butterfly joint in his shoulders, you know. There are a lot of things that, you know, this figure does to allow it to properly do what she does as a character. I mean, she's a swordsman, or swordswoman, so she needs to be able to hold the sword properly. And this was something that wasn't perfect in the first version of this figure, or first two versions of the figure, because I shouldn't say first two, but several of the other ones. But anyway, so her head freely moves. She can look up, she can look down, she can tilt to the side, she can look left and right. She's got a lot of tilt. This 2.0 body allows for a lot more movement. I've seen other reviews where they didn't even push the head up fully. It's like they're afraid it's going to break. She looks down, she looks up perfectly. There's no issues with her arms, lots of clearance. And then they added this extra joint to her shoulder, this extra bit where you can pop it out a little bit, and it allows for more movement. And it's a ball socket joint, so there's lots of rotation. She can really reach. This is what I'm talking about when I say engineer your fucking figures. If the figure is supposed to do something, I want to be able to do that thing with the character, you know, with the figure. Her arm bends further than 90 degrees. No need for a double jointed elbow. She's got a glove swivel and a wrist swivel. And I think that's because they sculpt that big old gauntlet and then put it on the arm. Her arm can move both ways, up and down, back and forth, as well as swivel. Her torso is a thing of beauty. The front piece on her chest plate actually moves. It's articulated. You can see she can move forward and back a lot, which is necessary for someone who, you know, dual wields broadswords, you know, pretty much. But look at this chest plate. The chest plate is on a figma joint. So not only can it move up out of the way of the lower half of her torso, see how it opens up? it actually can move to the sides a little bit. I mean, look how much it opens. So you can get her to dip down as far as possible. That's the farthest that almost any of my figures can bend. It's a thing of beauty. And this is what I'm talking about when I say this figure is beyond perfect. This is almost the most perfect figure I have. I mean, my Fies collection is the ones, they're the ones at the top. Now her armor bits to hang down on the dress, they are articulated. They can get out of the way simply because the dress itself has several pieces of articulation. It breaks up into about 3 big chunks, 4 if you count that front piece, and then they all move out of the way. They move up out of the way, they move back, they all can swivel a little bit. This is all to allow for better posing options. Like I said before, when I was talking about the sculpt, you can see that her legs are fully sculpted. There's details on those pants. And she has full range of motion with her legs. Bend more than 90 degrees. The actual boots and the armor are all painted in just as beautifully as everything on top. She even has a little toe articulation. What the fuck? That's like so much articulation for one character. You know, for such a small character, and there's no detail lost. All the fringe, the yellow lining the outside of her dress, the lower portion of her dress, the yellow lines, or gold lines, they're all there, and she looks fucking amazing. It's wild. It's like they spared no expense and they wanted to correct everything that they weren't able to do with previous ones. And then also, she has articulation in her hair. Her bun moves out the way so that you could make it look like she's jumping and have the ribbon moving upward. I took a picture of it just to show you guys, you know, it's like the icing on the cake. This figure is just a thing of beauty. Thing of beauty. Everybody else needs to fucking take note. These are little details that are like, they just make people like me amazed, because this is why I collect action figures, you know? I want a figure that, you know, is durable, it won't fall apart as I play around with it, and I want it to look cool when I pose it, you know, or take pictures or whatever. And, you know, I want to have fun with it, you know? She has everything that I could possibly ask for, and I'm super happy. Figures like Sabre come with so many accessories that your other figures are going to be jealous. I wouldn't be surprised if you come in to your man cave or your geek cave or whatever you guys call your spot, and you see your other figures trying to play around with her stuff. I mean, chances are she won't be having that shit, but it is very possible, like you see here, that a situation similar to this might happen. Her accessories are beautiful. They're very simplistic in the sense that, I mean, it's basically swords and sheaths. And, you know, of course there's extra hands, but it's swords and sheaths and, you know, extra stuff, just little bits and pieces of extra stuff to make her look just as awesome as possible. Now, if she catches them doing this with her stuff, I mean, I don't know what to say. All bets are off, right? But I easily believe that, you know, your other figures will be jealous of how well those parts work. I mean, not unless you have some Kamen Riders in your collection. I have a bunch of Kamen Riders, so it doesn't really make a difference to me. But with that being said, the paint and the sculpting being immaculate as they are on the figure, it doesn't stop on the figure. It all carried over to her accessories. And all her accessories are just so immaculate. They're so, like, indicative of the time. When you think about her being a medieval king or queen, you know what I mean? And her weaponry being pulled from that time, from Arthurian legend, being, you know, fancy and magical. You kind of get that feeling when you look at those weapons and you look at the design work. That's one of the things that caught my attention about the Fate series, is that each of the characters being pulled from a different mythological or historical time period, they still maintain that oomph that made them interesting in the first place for us to read about them separately. You know what I'm saying? But as far as her accessory count goes, or accessories, she comes with a decent amount of accessories. I mean, it's not like crazy things. You know, the only thing she's missing is an effect piece or an invisible version of her sword, because she does that in the series. But the accessories she has, they work. They work really well. She comes with a bunch of hands. I think it's what, 9 hands, because one of them, the pointing hand, it's only one hand that's doing something. She comes with 2 faces, extra hair piece, and the 2 swords, as well as the stand and the figma baggie. Like I said, I love this figure. Akiba Red loves this figure too. I think he loves all the pretty girls. Her hands, they vary from fists to holding things hands to hands specifically for her to have outstretched, resting on the handle of her sword. If you have the sword kind of resting out in front of her, as you've seen me do several times. And then she has a pointing hand. I think, and she also has a splayed out hand. And I think I had it on her when I took a picture of these, you know, the hands on the tree. Excalibur, sheathed in Avalon. Beautiful, beautiful paintwork. The sculpt, straightforward, simplistic, but it mirrors what Excalibur actually looks like shape-wise, and then they took liberties with things going on the sheath or scabbard, as you can see here. But I mean, look at that. Look at how small and how detailed the tip of the freaking sheath is. There's this freaking pearl painted on there. Then there's these little inscriptions on the blade as well as the scabbard. Look at the line work on the scabbard. It's insane. You know what I mean? It's insane, and it's so clean. Freaking Excalibur, the Sword of Legend. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful in its simplicity, because most of the time they go overboard with details and it kills the figure. It kills the design. I mean, look at a lot of the Play Arts Kai stuff, especially their Batman stuff. They've moved so far from who and what Batman is on a very basic functionality-wise level that it just doesn't feel like Batman anymore. Now you look at these and it's on model, 100%. Here's her second sword, Caliburn. In the sheath, this sheath is just as ridiculously detailed, with varying details though, as opposed to just a lot of detail that you saw in Avalon. But the sword is very ornate. The sheath is very ornate. I mean, look at that. It's just like, whoa. That's all I can say. Whoa. And it's not sloppy. It's not sloppy. I mean, everything is detailed to the umpteenth degree. I mean, if you handle these things with your bare hands, chances are, after several times of handling the fit, you know, these accessories, the oils in your hands might help wear away some of the paints. But, you know, besides things like that, which are eventualities to owning any action figure, it's still just beautiful as far as accessories go. Then there's the blade itself. It's just, like I said, the details don't stop. This is what we collect for, people. At least this is what I collect for. I don't know about a lot of other folks, but this is why I collect action figures. I want to be wowed. Like when I walk past the shelf that this character is sitting on, I want to have a reason to pick the figure up and play around with it. I want to be reminded of why I like this in the first place every time I look at it. And that's what I get when I look at this. Look at the inscriptions along the blade. And then that gold strip in the center of the silver blade. Not to mention all the gold lining all the areas with the blue on the inside. It's just ornate as fuck. It's just, you know, on another level. That's all I can say. Look at that tiny little blue lining on the blade. It's just beautiful stuff. You know, you guys, a lot of you don't know what you're missing, you know, for what, $45? I think now she's in the 50s. This is still worth it, you know. She comes with the alternate faces. She's got a, you know, battle cry kind of like in the heat of battle face, and then she's got an embarrassed, stern kind of face. It's kind of like the standard face also that she is wearing when you get her in package, except she's got the blush marks, or blush, you know, blush, she's blushing. She also comes with an extra wrist joint, because it's possible that if you put too much pressure on the wrist, it will separate. So the top peg and the bottom peg are connected at the center and they might fall apart. It's just awesome. The bottom line is everything that you have been given with this figure, everything that they have done, they've been successful with. You know what I mean? Everything that's attempted on this figure, in my opinion, is successful. I've seen a lot of reviews where people try so hard to sound, you know, extra discriminatory to the point of you will never find a figure that will meet your standards. This here is, in my opinion, the perfect figure. She looks exactly like the source material, you know, except for maybe one or two tiny details like the color of that front flap. But, you know, she's wearing the pieces of armor and costuming. She has the articulation to pull off the poses that you've seen her do in the TV show. She has 3 faces that reflect the kind of personality this character has. She's not a googly-eyed, you know, goofy personality-wise, you know, waifu type character. She's very stern, she's very tempered, and she's very powerful. And all of that is reflected in the various poses you can put her in and the expressions that you have as far as her facial expressions go. You know, you can switch out to which one works the best for you in your display. The fact that any pose, I mean, look at this. How many figures do you have in your collection that can actually do this? And it looks so clean and so fresh. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is ridiculous. This is why we collect figures. You want to see this kind of shit. I keep saying it because this is what I've wanted. You know? How many Leonardo figures can pull off that pose? There's like none. Even the freaking NECA one. It can pull off some of the poses, but they don't look as natural as this, you know? How many McFarlane figures with swords can actually do this stuff? None. How many of your Masters of the Universe classics can do that? None. It's one of those things where you're seeing engineering at its finest mixed up with a sculpt that works well, and then with materials that actually allow you to pull off the poses without a fear of breaking the figure. You know? The only other company that goes this far is SH Figuarts. And I've already told you, Bandai makes the best stuff, but this right here, like I told you, my Fies collection is close to perfect because I have every version and everything in between of what I want in a perfect figure. Well, this here is another perfect figure. There's not much more to ask. If I was to collect, and I am going to go back and get more of the existing, you know, Sabre figures, she's perfect. She is perfect. You know what I mean? Literally, she should walk out right now and drop the mic. It's done. Other figures don't compare to this, you know? There are few figures, especially in the American market, that compare to this figure. And this is even if you didn't know who she was from the anime. She's just a well-done figure, beautifully sculpted. She's ready to take on whatever you want to throw at her, you know? Pose-wise, you put her in a pose, she will hold that pose. So, once again, they took a legendary character, did her up in, you know, the awesome figma style, and now you have a legendary action figure. You know, years from now, I won't be surprised if this is one of those figures that it'll be super hard to find, and when you do find it, it's going to be up there in price, and it'll be something that the figure and the company earned. You know what I mean? And if you get one that has any issues, you call the Good Smile company, show them a picture of what's wrong, they will send you a new one so that you can get one that's even closer to perfect. What more could you ask for in your action figure? So anyway, this has been my review of the perfect action figure, the figma Sabre 2.0. It's one of my holy grails. I'm so happy to have had it or found it. I'm happy to review it. I'm happy that this is that this exists and I was actually able to be a part of it. So I'm STRYDENT. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for paying attention to everything I had to say. Hopefully, if I have convinced you, you need to get this now before it disappears. And this is the truth. So that's it for me. Peace outside.